everyone, it's Aisha Dang. Today we're going to be doing another get ready with me whilst talking about money and finances video, because I have to shoot like 5 things today. I'm giving off like Pulp Fiction vibes at the moment, but I wanted to chit chat a little bit to kind of talk about something that has been, thank you for whoever just ordered something for Master Plan. I want to talk about the emotional stress of having an emergency fund. We're gonna just start right now. I know that like doesn't seem like it makes sense, but I know I have been going through it with my emergency fund, and according to some of the DMs I've been getting and a few comments on some of our recent videos, it seems like people are stressed about having an emergency fund. So this is the comment that inspired this video from Alexis. Thank you for asking it. Can you do a video about the mindset shift you go through once you have an emergency fund? I'm struggling because I thought I would feel so different with the savings, but I just feel like those dollars aren't being used / don't have a job. I just think it's funny because people kind of hype up an emergency fund as being like, once you have a fully funded emergency fund, you're gonna feel so secure. And I think that's true to an extent, but as Alexis touched on, there's definitely a mindset shift you have to go through. I think my mindset and her mindset shift are a little different. Her mindset is basically like, what am I doing with this money? I could be probably like investing it or maybe even paying off debt with it. Like, why is it here? My mindset shift is, if I spend the money in my emergency fund, I have failed. What is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is basically 3 to 6, maybe even 12 months of savings of expenses that you put, I need to get a new color, that you put in a high yield savings account to use for emergencies. Some call it emergency funds, some call it savings funds. Ultimately, it's the exact same thing. It is money that is meant to protect you or save you from unexpected circumstances so you don't have to go into debt for it. I think that should be a financial focus. Even if you are still in debt, you need to have an emergency fund, or else you may go, like I said, further into debt. So that is like one of the financial basics that you definitely have to have. I think where we'll start is kind of like diving deep into my emotional issues about emergency funds, which is I feel guilty. I know I will feel guilty kind of dipping into it, which is why I have a very large cash cushion. I basically have all these fail safes within my finances to make sure I don't touch it, which is definitely a little counterintuitive, because I think we all have to remember that emergency funds are kind of designed to be spent. Like, that's why we keep it liquid. That's why we keep it in a high yield savings account. That's why we don't invest it, because it's meant to be spent in cases of emergencies. But for me, it's kind of just like, well, I spent like 4 months building it up. Like, the last thing I want to do is spend it, right? And I think there's a few questions we have to ask ourselves before we kind of dip into that emergency fund to make sure that we're spending it on the right things. So I think the first question is this an emergency? Are you tempted to use your emergency fund every Christmas because you didn't like save for it? I think that's kind of like the main difference, is like, is this an unexpected event, or is this something that could have been planned for ahead? Christmas, birthdays, trips, whatever. So what are some things that are unexpected? Job loss, job cuts, those are things that we talked about in my how to prepare for a recession video. Car repairs, medical emergencies, maybe damage to your house caused by a storm. Those are all emergencies, and I think the key word again is like unexpected. We are all kind of like financially savvy here and can understand the difference, but sometimes like when you are in a jam, it might be tempting to dip into your emergency fund. But then we have to come to question number 2, which is it a necessity or is it a want? So let's say you want a new car, but there's 2 different scenarios. The first scenario being, I feel like I'm just like way too close. The first scenario being, you just want to upgrade your car. Okay, that's cool, but that's not a necessity. The second scenario being, you lost your main source of transportation and you need a car to get to work. That is a necessity. Another example is buying a plane ticket or buying a hotel. One example is a last minute decision to go on vacation. Cute, but not a necessity. The second scenario being you have to travel last minute for a family emergency. That is a necessity. So the questions we have so far, is this an unexpected event? And is this a necessity or a want? The third question we have to ask is this urgent? You needing a new car because your car broke down and you have to get to work every day is urgent. I think another reason why someone might be uncomfortable spending money from their emergency fund is maybe like you just simply don't have enough. Maybe you don't have a fully funded emergency fund yet, or maybe you've just undersaved and you just don't want to touch that money because you don't want to build it back. And I totally understand that. Again, it's kind of like rule of thumb that you have 3 to 6 months of expenses for your emergency fund, but I think during COVID times, we all experienced that sometimes that is not enough. And I know people that have maybe a year's worth of money expenses in their emergency fund, and you know, if that's what you need to feel comfortable, then that's what you need to do. I think you also might feel that way because you haven't experienced an emergency yet in which you need to dip into your emergency fund. But I know for a fact that if you had to dip into your emergency fund, you would feel glad that you had one. And I mean, I hope none of us have to dip into our emergency fund. That's obviously the hope. But I know that we would all feel so much better in an emergency because we had something to back us up. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, everyone? Let me know in the comments and let's have this dialogue about maybe not feeling super thrilled about saving up for an emergency fund. This is definitely not talked about. I actually tried to Google. I tried so many keywords to try and Google to see if someone had even like wrote an article about it or talked about it, but no one has talked about this kind of aspect of an emergency fund. So I think probably this is your chance to get all of your feelings out there. Well, we look a little better. I think once the hair comes and maybe if I change, this is not cutting it. It'll be better. So I'll be back. Oh my God, see what a little styling can do to change the look so much better. I was thinking about it and as I was like finishing up the look, and I think maybe what might make people feel more comfortable about saving into an emergency fund is basically thinking of it as insurance. Like, we have car insurance, we have health insurance, some of us have pet insurance, we have home insurance. We spend a lot of money every month on insurances, especially in America, and you know, we hardly use them, and thankfully, like, we don't want to have to use homeowners insurance. We don't want to have to use car insurance or health insurance, but we spend a lot of money every month on those insurances, so we can have a reassurance that if we need them, they are there. And I think we need to go into maybe our emergency fund with that same mindset. I hope that maybe this video reassured you. I hope it did. And if anything, I just hope it maybe starts a conversation about a topic that we don't normally talk about. I'm Misha Dane. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you all next video. Okay, bye.